It was over 50 years ago this week when the world learned of the untimely death of Bruce Lee. While his cause of death was never clearly determined, Bruce Lee's impact in martial arts and film is unmistakable. He is considered by many to be the most influential martial artist of all time and is credited for paving a new path for Asian actors and filmmakers in Hollywood. His popularity and iconic status go beyond his life as a martial arts, film, and television icon to posthumously include comics, animation, merchandise and now video games. Enter the Dragon, 1973, was Bruce Lee's final completed film before his death on July 20, 1973, at the age of 32. He never saw the film in its final state or its release 1 month later. The film was added to the Library of Congress National Film Registry in 2004. Today, we pay tribute to Bruce Lee in the film that is still considered to be one of the greatest martial arts movies ever made. In Enter the Dragon, a Shaolin Temple priest and a Western intelligence agent persuade a suburban Hong Kong phenom named Lee, played by Bruce Lee, to attend a gangland chieftain's kung fu tournament. It's actually an audition for potential thugs to fill an underworld army. But Lee disdains the suggestion that he might need military help. He's an old-fashioned Chinese individualist. His body makes him super self-sufficient. Enter the Dragon is basically a revenge fantasy. The henchman of Lee's mobster enemy, Shi Qin, hounded Lee's sister to her death. But along with its tension and its camp, the film is suffused with sympathy for outcasts and underdogs. One of Lee's allies is a black American man, Jim Kelly, who escapes to the kung fu match after practicing on a pair of racist cops. When crossing the Hong Kong harbor he mutters, "Ghettos are the same all over the world, they stink." Add a dead-ridden white gambler, John Saxon, who knew Kelly's Black Power black belt in Vietnam, and you've got a three-man shock troop for the Rainbow Coalition. When this film premiered, extremists were telling slum kids to get their hands on guns. Lee's message was that angry young men of all colors possess the fire next time, within. Lee died on July 20, 1973, 6 weeks before his $600,000 epic debuted and went on to gross $150 million worldwide. It's a gaudy, gimcrack construction that's also a whirling piece of legendary. Lee coined his own action film iconography out of flying fists and feet. All of these years later, he still excites that audience from the moment he appears, in wrestling briefs that drape his buttocks like the cheekiest, chicest Calvin Klein's. It's less a matter of sexual attraction than transcendent awe. He's reed thin and feather delicate, and when he goes on the attack there's no macho cool about him. He vibrates with concentrated energy, like a spindle. You fear his intensity will crack your skull. He takes you so far into his gladiator's psyche that you feel his moves and countermoves even when he gyrates too quickly for you to understand them. He could be giving himself whiplash as he shakes his head clear for the next step. More than thinking on his feet, he thinks on bobbing toes. Because he was so incredibly quick and light, I once called him the Fred Astaire of Kung Fu, making martial arts look easy. But you say he's the Baryshnikov, exercising midair scissors cuts as complex as Balanchine ballets, or the Savian Glover, conjuring improvisational dance from his rattling kinetic rhythm. The opening match in Enter the Dragon is a warm-up for novices, Chop Saki 101. He wins it with ease and without preening. Of course, Lee choreographed all the fights in the film himself. But he makes them appear spontaneous, inspired, and as selfless as the work of a completely engaged athlete. Lee fills the movie with acrobatic wonders. Vaulting into a tree he appears to be reversing gravity. More than in any Superman film, you believe he can fly. Lee's triumph is one of personality and vision, not just physical performance. At rest, his lightness, the light timbre of his voice, and his unlined features are disarmingly boyish. Lee also has a boy's furtive cunning. He has as much control over his facial muscles as he does over his biceps. We know that his occasional blankness is an act of will, a camouflage against prying eyes. At sport he doesn't pander to sadistic fantasies, he plays by strict, fair rules. But in a grudge match, his very being alters. His lungs expand like bellows, filling his body with new weight. His muscles ripple like electrified barbed wire. And his face takes on the aspect of a demon. It's tantamount to seeing the Incredible Hulk emerge without special effects. Lee communicates instantly with teenagers and children because he seems to have just straddled adolescence himself. Most of the time, he's stoic, but when family honor is at stake, and his private essence challenged, he allows himself to go tantrum crazy. In his Hulk act he lets loose a primal scream. Lee refutes the notion that we grow up and out of youthful sentiments, jettisoning them in stages, like rockets. Lee holds them in equipoise, and assumes a suave, wry maturity. He shows that childish emotions need not be retrogressive, they can be downright restorative for adults. You can predict how Lee will react from moment to moment, yet his personality hangs together. His shifts in accent from the slurred and breathy to the ultrade liberate and Mr. Moto-esque con me becomes con me, somehow merged to seem pleasing and refined. His mystique is magnetic. He's never just an inscrutable oriental. He betrays enough of his inner workings to compel our curiosity. The Lee figure is a rebel without a portfolio. But he does have a cause, which nothing less than authenticity. Near the beginning of Enter the Dragon, he urges a boy at the Shaolin Temple to kick him with emotional content. The boy holds back, reluctant to attack an understanding older brother figure. Lee doesn't condescend or coddle, instead he slaps the kid repeatedly, catalyzing fighting passion. What Lee is trying to teach isn't a bag of tricks or an ethereal ritual, but an organic discipline. He's putting flesh on the force. He wants us to be so attuned to our emotions and abilities that we can set them loose in controlled torrents, floods of feeling coursing through physical floodgates. In the 1979 Kung Fu movie, Circle of Iron, made from a script Lee was developing at the time of his death, TV's martial arts master, David Carradine, taught a surly neophyte Lee's special Spartan strain of Zen. Carradine instructed the boy to distrust abstract religious values and to respect justice, not arbitrary rules. The overriding theme was, know thyself. When Carradine led his tutee to the Book of Enlightenment, each page was a mirror. Idealistic though it sounds, the saturnine Carradine and his reluctant disciple, Jeff Cooper, made Lee's philosophy seem like an excuse for breaking non-believers' bones. Watching Lee in Enter the Dragon, lessons that could be gassy or dangerous become concrete and admirable. When Lee keeps his foes from invading his circle of iron, he puts value back into the phrase, creating space. His integrity works like an invisible shield. His presence is so unself-conscious and sure, he's less a beacon of selfhood than a paragon of honesty and wholeness. Jackie Chan may have brought his own unique form of martial arts comedy to movies. But as a heroic ideal, no one has filled Lee's fighting shoes. No one's even invaded his space.